Hi, this is Suzanne in Ohio. Well, as soon as I start talking, then I got a little frog in my throat. Hey, I've got a project share for you today. I've been meaning to do more of this. Someone asked me about it. And these are some images for my journals that I have created start to finish myself. Not that there aren't a lot of beautiful images out there. Especially the kits for fall, they're just absolutely stunning. But sometimes I just want, for whatever reason, my own images. And besides that, I'm trying to really master or learn some more about these Inktense pencils. Now I have the pencils, and I hope to get the blocks sometime pretty soon. For those of you that aren't real familiar with them, let me show them to you. I have the big set, and too many of them to lay out here. And if you're not familiar with these, here's the whole point. They do look like a pencil. They almost look like a colored pencil, but they are actually pigment ink. So inside the wood here, the color is ink. Now, the wonderful thing about these pencils are that this product, that once the ink is dry, and I'll explain that in just a minute, it's permanent. So unlike a watercolor, you wouldn't have to worry about damaging it or let's say Mod Podging over it, because it's going to stay. Now, the pencils come marked with, you can see right here, a color code on the end of them. But I didn't find it true to the color, or it was hard to see. So I made little variegated strips. Let me see if you can see this. I made little variegated strips of the pigment on paper. See if that'll focus. You know, why is it every time you want it to, it won't? Yeah, so I went from dark down to real light, and then I just twisted it around the pencil and put it on with some cellophane tape or masking tape. That way I can look in on my tray and find the color I want much easier than going by what was on the pencil. Now, this pigment works in a wonderful way. You put it on your paper, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, and then you activate the ink. And you have three choices, as far as I know of, to activate the ink. Some kind of moist liquid activates the ink, and then you can blend it and manipulate it a little bit, as long as you're doing that before it starts drying. So I found these just invaluable for several reasons. So I came up with this idea that I wanted to do some images, which I did. Now, I'll show you how I started. I started with line drawings. I simply went online and looked at actual photographs of some items that I wanted to try. Mushrooms. Let's see what's here. Oh, milkweed and bittersweet. And then I wanted to print these off, and of course I make an individual file of each image, and then pull up the images I want, fill my page full, and print them off. Well, I knew if I tried to watercolor them, the black lines would smear, because I have an inkjet printer, and as soon as you get that wet, it starts running. So it's near to impossible to do watercolor on that. So I thought, well, I wonder if Inktense would work, because you have to activate the ink with a moist liquid. And your three choices are aloe vera juice, pure aloe vera gel, let's see, paint medium, which is a product that they produce for you to add to your acrylic paints to paint on fabric, and it's supposed to thin it down and take away that stiff feel to it, keep it more pliable. Or you can moisten the ink with water. So I have had the best luck with aloe vera gel, so that's what I wanted to do. I thought, well, I'll print these off, which I did, and I printed many so I'd have some to practice with, and then I colored them with my Inktense pencils. So I want to show you a few of these images. Now, I don't have my overhead light on because the light coming in from my window seemed just fine a while ago, but I'll hold these up a little closer so you can get an idea. And I want to tell you that it's so easy to use these pencils. Come on, camera. I had the darnest time with this autofocus. I know it wants something to focus on, so sometimes I'll just put my finger over it. Well, that ain't cooperating. But, and then I created this little fall vignette, so to speak, cluster. I wasn't real crazy about the coloring that came out in that, but it's good. And mushrooms, skirted mushrooms, another mushroom, Turk's turban, milkweed, a squash or a gourd, whatever you want to call it, some more purple mushrooms, and then this is just a larger print of the same pumpkin image. Then I did some leaves, and I'll just lay them out here so you can see them. And I was trying different techniques, so some of these leaves are better than others, but I think I've narrowed it down to a good process. So let me show you how this is done. Now, my encouragement for everybody is always, if you do artwork, use your artwork in many different ways. So after I had my originals colored, put them back on the scanner and scanned them, and then just printed out tons of stuff. There's the little bittersweet. I think I'll show you the line drawing for that one. That was, I know I have it here. Just a simple line drawing for bittersweet. And then what I did was I printed off on presentation paper, because that gives me the best coloring. I printed off tons of these little images in different sizes so that I would have them ready for my projects. Now that's going to come in handy here in just a minute. I want to show you why. But look how beautifully they printed off. And I love, oh, this is an original here. I should have had that in the other package. Now, the reason I can tell it's an original coloring is by the feel of it. So I colored this gourd just slightly different than this one. Just a little darker, a little bit more orange, brighter. But I thought, now how is that aloe vera gel going to work on that paper? Because I printed off the images that I was going to paint on. I printed off on 27 or 28 pound paper. And I thought, I don't know if the paper's going to hold up to all that moisture. Well, it did fine. Every now and then, a little bit of color, depending on how much pigment was on there. It came through the back, but it didn't do anything. It warped the paper just ever so slightly, but then I took it to the ironing board and ironed it, and it turned out just fine. So, the original colored ones are done on paper. Then I put them back in and scanned them. And again, I printed some of them on that 27 or 28 pound paper to use in journals, or I printed them on presentation paper, the heavy one, so it's a lightweight cardstock, and that'll make great journaling cards. So you can see, yes, I went overboard. I don't know, I just can't stop. But more than that, as soon as I start filling up a page, I want to fill my page up with anything that I might use this year or next or whatever, because I don't want to waste my paper. That presentation paper is expensive. So here's a nice print of that, large print of that Bittersweet. And I want you to see it up close if I can get this to focus, because the original is done on fabric. So if you look close, there you go. You can almost see the texture of the fabric. Oh, this darn thing. Well, anyways. So that's a completely different venue right there, almost. I should do some more images on fabric so they all have a congruent look to them. Okay, so if you're curious about how that Inktense works, I have a little project to show you. We're going to do it together right here. I'm going to let you see how I did this. I did some line drawings of some leaves. Now here's my original line drawings. This was Limelight Hydrangea, Tulip Poplar, and Redbud, a redbud bush my neighbor has, and there. So I put all these images in my files individually, and then I just simply printed myself out a page. And this was for experiment, really. So this is how it looks, and it doesn't look like much, but I want you to see the magic happens as soon as I use the activator, which in this case is aloe vera gel. Now I just have old crummy paintbrushes. I love them because I know what the bristles will do. Some are acrylic and some are stiff, some are long and pointed and get soft when you wet them, and they're just different brushes for different things, but you can see they're well used. And then since I'm working over here on my computer desk, I just brought over this little plastic lid, and all we're going to do is squirt out some aloe vera juice. I keep saying aloe vera juice. Aloe vera gel. I have taken aloe vera juice before. That's why that word comes to me so easy. Alright, so what I did off camera was use some Inktense pencils and put the color down on the paper. It looks extremely light, doesn't it? But you'll be able to see it change right before your eyes. So I did these two leaves kind of in a spring-summer color tones, and then I did these as if they're more fall leaves. Now, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but we're going to see it right here together. Typically what I did was I melted the first layer, let it dry, and then if it needed any more color, I went back over it. But let's try and see what happens. Now my brushes are dry. They don't have to be. If I rinse them out, then I just make sure I dry them with a paper towel. But the real trick is to get some of that aloe vera gel down in the bristles of your brush. So I pounce it around a little bit. I want all the bristles wet. And then it's really just the aloe vera gel that's on the outside of the bristles that you're just kind of dragging it along, and let's call it buttering it on there. Alright, let's do the spring leaf first. And then and I'm working with the tripod right here, so if my brush looks funky, that's why I'm right up against that tripod. So we're going to just drag this brush along and watch that Inktense melt. Look at that. Now I'm going to hold it up closer so you can see what's really happening there. It's melting and brightening up. So we're going to give it I always give it a second or two to dampen dampen itself, and then let's go down the other side. And I'm not worried about going outside the lines because with the gel, because I am going to cut these out. And then let's just dampen the stem a little bit. Now, if you have a color and you want to swish it while it's still damp and there's still plenty of aloe vera on there, you can work your color back and forth. If you have a hard line that accidentally got in there from your pencil being too sharp, then you can kind of rub it out. So there's one spring leaf. Let's get some more gel. We want to have plenty on here. And let's do this red bud. And we're just going to swish around. And I don't know why I try to go in the same direction as maybe the veins or the texture of whatever the object is, but in most cases it almost doesn't matter. And you can see it is not disturbing my my black line drawing, even though it was printed on an inkjet. So we have melted the spring and the leaves. Now I think it needs a little bit more shadow around the outside, so I'm going to grab a darker green here, and all I'm going to do is see if this works here. I have a special little technique I use over at my desk, but what you're going to do is right here you're going to have a little bit of aloe vera gel, and you're dampening the end of your pencil to get some pigment and mix it in, and you're making a little slurry, almost a glaze. It's going to be translucent glaze. So let's see if this works here. I did it on several other objects, but you know how the camera is. The minute you want it to do right on camera, it don't. But I've got a darker green there, and let's just go around the edge of one of these leaves and darken it just a little bit. So remember, this is just a slurry or a glaze. Think of it as a glaze. And I'm going to put it on there, and then I'm going to work it. And I can do it however I want. And I have too much, and darn if I didn't bring... Oh yeah, I've got a tissue here. So I'll take a little bit of that off. And remember, it's workable as long as it's not dry. So if you have plenty of aloe vera gel on there, it's not going to dry readily. I think 2 or 3 minutes before it starts setting up. And let's get some of these hard lines out of here. Now my paper is buckling, but since I know that it's going to be all right, I'm not the least bit worried about it. So let's put a little bit more green on this one, and we'll just do 1/2 of it as if the light is coming from a different direction. Now that little glaze is one technique. Another one you can use is just pick up pigment right off the end of your pencil and then lay it down. Only reason this is not my favorite is because it's real hard excuse me, it's real hard to tell how much pigment you've got on the end of the brush. And you can see I've got quite a bit. Don't panic. I'm going to wipe some of that off, and then we're going back and we're going to blend it down. And there you have the shading on that one side. Now, of course, you could work on a piece of art all day long, depending on how much realism you want. But, excuse me, for my projects, that's good. Let me get this ink off of here. Now, I'm just trying to get the green off of my brush, but truly, I don't care if the colors mix a little bit, but I wanted you to see exactly what happens here. So let's do this tulip poplar leaf. Now, my neighbor has this tulip poplar tree, and I noticed one thing. They didn't go through a variation of shades where part of the leaf. Mostly, they just faded from green right out to this brilliant rusty gold color. So, I gave this leaf a little bit more personality because I didn't want it to all be one big flat color. So, think of it like this. I'm melting the ink. And let's just go around, make sure we have gel on everything. And I hope you can see what's happening here. I'll hold it up to the camera. And we just want all that ink to melt or be activated. If you leave it unactivated and then use that piece of art to like Mod Podge, the Mod Podge will activate it and then you probably have a mess. But there's our tulip poplar leaf. Whoop. Let's get it up here. See if this camera will focus. And that's the first go over. And I'll probably make a slurry of brown and go back around those edges and give it some shadow. So, if you're enjoying this part, watch for these two more leaves. If not, skip ahead because I'm going to show you something else. So, this is that red bud leaf. And the truth is, they didn't have much color in the fall either. So I just added a few extra colors in here to give it what I wanted. Just some variation. And let's wet this other side. Quite a bit of gel there, so I'll take that off. Although I found out it won't hurt anything. Now you can see that I've got some lines here in my orange. And I don't like that. So I'm going to kind of use the tip of my brush and scrub, and just has to be on there 5 to 10 seconds, and that melts the ink, and that allows me to scoot the color around. Now, because of the position of my tripod here in my way, I'm going to switch this, and I want to scrub a little bit along the edge here and right here where I put this brown for shadow, and just smear it around and work it out. Now you can use a stiffer brush if you're doing a lot of scrubbing. That scrubs also. Even a scrubber, those of you that do watercolor know what a scrubber brush is, but I found I didn't really need it. I just needed to give it a second to melt, and then even this soft bristles worked the color around the way I wanted it. So one more fall leaf here, just so you can watch it as it happens. If you can color in a coloring book, you can do this. Because all it is laying down your colors and knowing where you want the colors, and then layering them if you'd like to layer. I do. That gives a good blending. let's see, I did put some color down here on the stem. And remember, I don't care if I'm outside the lines a little bit because I'm going to cut these out. So there you have how the Inktense pencils work. I'll move this a little bit, and that's pretty much the technique that I used when I did my fall images, the ones that you can see over here in the corner. Now, these could use some more work, but they're fine as is. It depends on what you want to do with them. And my goal was to have just some bright colored fall images so that I could then turn around and use the images and do some other things with them. So I admit I kind of went off on a wild herring. That's a big fault of mine. I get one idea, start looking into one technique leads to the next, and then the next idea, and then the next. And so, wow, there's nowhere to stop. So let's put this aside, and let's go back to this stack of images. Now, if you only are watching this for the Inktense part of it, that's pretty much all I'm going to show today. I'm going to do another video showing some more Inktense on fabric, but that'll be coming up in a week or so. Now, obviously I was working on fall because it was fall, but you can tell I've missed the boat. I'm way behind schedule, and so now I've got all this stuff to use for next year. And that doesn't bother me because I'm inspired for fall things because it is fall. It's awfully hard for me to get into something and be on time with it. So I was talking to myself today and saying, boy, I should start right now for spring. And start working on watering cans and trowels and trellises and flowers and everything that you can think of. So I've got all this stack of stuff. So I want to show you what I did with it. So while I was working on this idea, and I had, let's see, this image, or one like it, I put that image on the scanner, and printed it out. This pumpkin, I fussy cut it out and made a card. Now, let me see if this will focus here. I thought, okay, I'm too late for fall journals. Maybe I will just send out some fall, greeting cards. Maybe Thanksgiving or something like that. Why won't this camera focus? Oh my goodness. There we go. Okay, so that's a copy of the original colored image, and then I fussy cut it out. I printed it on presentation paper, cut it out, and then backed it with sheet music, and then put this little collage-y thing down around the bottom. There's one of the gourds or squash, whatever you want to call it. So I made this little card, and I put under here, under this edge, this fabric sticking out that you can see is one of the piece of the fall snippet rolls that I was making. I did another video on that. So I got this idea and I thought, wow, okay. So I put this on the scanner and scanned the whole card. And I didn't know what it would look like because these fibers are three-dimensional, especially this curly looking stuff. And I didn't know if it would just squish up to a terrible mess. But lo and behold, I got a good image, put it in my files, and then I printed a whole page of it. Now, I already used one of them, which I'm going to show you what I did with it here in a minute. So I was printing these off, and I thought, man, I don't know. See, my brain was just jumping. Maybe I need medication. I don't know. I thought, I wish I had some way to see if I could print this image on photo paper. You know, because I have tons of photo paper that I've gotten at the thrift store, all different sizes. And I found a box which said soft gloss. So I tried that too. And, oh darn, I wanted to show you. Let me see real quick if I can find that stack of photos. Yep, here's I'll show you my photo prints. So I put some photo paper in there, and they did print off nice, but they don't have near the brilliance that it does on presentation paper. So I will have to find another use for all these, all of that photo paper that I have. So that idea goes to the side because it wasn't as brilliant as I would like to have it. So I had all this going on now, and let me get a piece of paper here, because this is just too much stimulation on the back. So what I did this morning was, I thought, well, I want to make a little something. I've got 5 or 6 people. I'll just give them this thing. They can set it on the kitchen counter because they're all having a lot of guests over for Thanksgiving. So I made this little stand-up card. You can see how I did it here. I put a fabric hinge here, and that keeps it fairly stiff so it won't give way. And it just stands up on the counter just like that. But here's what the one, this was a photo print. You can see it's not nearly bright enough. And so I made another one. And this one, let me get in the right place here. Yeah, I had fun with this one. So all my little images that I print out, I fussy cut them out. These gourds, this Turk's turban, and over here you can see the milkweed pods. And then I put a piece of my dyed lace right here, and on top of that a piece of that snippet roll, and then a little wavy banner. Nothing's flat, it's all slightly three-dimensional. And then I also made it a stand-up card, so it'll stand up right on the countertop, just like that. And this larger one I'm going to give to my girlfriend because she's having about 20 people over, and the most beautiful kitchen, and she can sit that right up on her bar beside the cake or pies, because it does say pie, and one fine day. And it's just a little holiday thing. Now you could take this whole idea into something much more, well, for one thing, smaller for your journals, or different ideas like the front of a journal cover or anything you want to do with it. So there you have it. So I started with line drawings, like right here's my milkweed and here's my finished product. I copied this off on 27-pound paper. I colored it with Inktense, put it back on the scanner, scanned and made a file, shrunk it down, and printed these off, and then fussy cut them out. And there's the process. My encouragement to everybody is, I don't care if you're doing just, oh, what am I trying to say, gel prints, jelly plate prints, or stenciling, or whatever you're doing. If it's uniquely your creation, be sure and scan it. You will have a use for it somewhere, some way, in another project. So there's my 2 late Thanksgiving projects, but it started with a line drawing, Inktense, and this is the finished product. So, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. I'm going to be putting up a few more videos real soon featuring this snippet roll because I have used it in a different way. So, I want you to, well, let's see. Let me show you one. For those that might not have watched the other video, have a scrap of it here. And when you turn it over, you'll see that that's a piece of seam binding. And I discovered that I could use my old seam bindings that have the adhesive strips on them, the iron-on seam binding. And I did a running stitch initially to put the fabric on there because I like the look of that thread. I simply like that look. And I did some on the sewing machine too, but these with the running stitch and the embroidery thread, I did while I was laying on the couch. And that way I don't have to be up at my sewing machine. That was my rest time. And so I just cut a piece of that off, mounted it on the bottom, and voila, there you have it. Now I'm looking around to see if there's anything else I haven't showed you. As always, shut the video down and I forget. Just in case you want to see, here is how I configure a page with all those images. And like I said, that's expensive. I mean, it can be expensive. Presentation paper. So I go ahead and fill my page up. And someone asked me about ink the other day. I do buy generic ink. And I find it's just as beautiful as buying, you know, the special ink that's suggested for the printer. I always have. My son got me onto that, and I've never been unhappy with it. Comes out true to color. And these I printed on high quality because I really wanted them to pop. They would have come out nice anyway since it's on presentation paper, but if you want something really sharp and clear, high quality. And it's the presentation paper that makes all the difference in the world. You'll never get an image this sharp on regular paper. And I've got some paper, especially for inkjets, 22, 24, 26 pound, and it's still not as bright as on this. And for those of you that might not know, presentation paper has a coating on it. And from my research and what I was told, it has a slight ultra-thin layer of a clay-based product on it. And that's what sets the ink. And that's what gives it all those crisp lines. None of the ink soaks into the paper. It's resting on top of that thin layer of clay. Okay, folks, I've jabbered on here long enough. Keep watching. I have several more videos I'll be uploading within probably 24 hours. So come back and see me again. Thank you for all the YouTubers that share all their talent and their wonderful techniques and tricks. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it hadn't been for those people that inspired me. All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.